good afternoon, everybody. This is actually you said it, a perfect Irish rainy day. Um, I can't seem to get the chill out today, but I think it's supposed to be nice tomorrow. So we can just stay cozy and enjoy this wonderful program. I'm going to introduce to you the Director of Cultural Affairs at Passaic County Community College. And she's also, you're in charge of the Folklife Center of North Jersey, right? And this is Susan Ballack. Welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. I want to start today by giving telling you a little bit about the Folklife Center. We are one of 5 centers in the state. We're the newest center, just about almost 2 years old since our grand opening. And we do a series of different types of programming. General, we do programming in the schools, and we also do folk life programming for the homebound, and this is a part of that series. So we're really grateful for the partnership with Michelle, and I welcome all of you. And I also want to add that the Folklife Center of Northern New Jersey is a co-sponsored project of the National, it's a co-sponsored project of the New Jersey State Council on the Arts and Passaic County Community College. And there's also additional funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. So I'd like to introduce our musician today. His name is Brian Patrick Zora, and he lives in Highland Park, New Jersey, and has been playing Ulleann Irish pipes since 1999. He first caught the bug and fell in love with the sound of the pipes as a child in Rutherford, having found an old album of the great piper Finbar Fury in the stacks of the public library. Brian first learned to play Ulleann pipes from fiddler Willie Kelly in Boonton, New Jersey, and is now furthering his skills under the guidance of internationally renowned piper Ivan Goff. Ivan resides in the Woodside section of the Bronx. Brian is a regular Irish session leader and attendee, and has performed with various musical groups, including his current traditional Irish group, Dina. So let's welcome Brian. It's my first time actually hearing Brian play, and I'm really looking forward to it. So enjoy.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Susan. Thanks. I'm glad everybody could make it today. Usually when I do these concerts, I come into people's homes, and that's always a wonderful experience for me to be able to share this music and get to know people, on a one-on-one basis. But, given the times they are right now, I'm really glad that we can still do that in some way. So in a sense, here I am in your home, but you're also in my home. So we're sharing a little bit of our homes with each other. And hopefully someday soon we'll be able to do the concerts in the Homebound series in homes again. And there's lots of programs out there, not just music, but there's art programs. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely find out about that, and have artists come in and work with you as well as musicians. So it's a really, really wonderful program. But I do want to wish everybody happy Irish St. Patrick's Month. Usually for Irish musicians like myself, it's like Christmas all month long. I mean, we have tons of gigs and everybody wants to hear Irish music and traditional Irish music, which is what I play. There are sessions throughout the year so that people like myself, a session is basically a small group of people that just gets together. And if any of you play Irish music, like play fiddle or tin whistle or flute, people are always welcome to come to the sessions. They're throughout the state. They run on weekly basis. Usually I was running one down in Highland Park until COVID hit, but I was doing that on a monthly basis. So usually, we're playing music all the time, but St. Patrick's Month, March, is always the big month where people just love to hear Irish music. And like I said, it's Christmas. I mean, I just love playing it out and having people enjoy the music. It's a wonderful traditional music that, we learn from other players. It's a very kind of oral tradition, like a language where you sit down and you learn with somebody how to play it. So this instrument that I'm playing is actually, it actually almost died out. I'd say probably in the 1950s, it was almost gone. But there was a couple of groups that really were concerned about the instrument dying out, and now the instrument has had this resurgence. And what instrument is this? This is actually the Irish bagpipe, also called and usually known as Ulleann bagpipes. Now, Ulleann is spelled Uilleann, which looks like Ulleann, but it's Irish, so it's Ulleann. They don't pronounce, the same thing. Just like English, we have words like through, which, if you didn't speak English, you'd probably call it trough or something like that. But Ulleann means elbow, because for this instrument, unlike the other bagpipes that you normally think of, like seeing in the parades, which are the Scottish Highland pipes or the Irish war pipes, unlike those, I fill up the bag with a bellow under this arm. So this elbow goes all the time, and it connects to my bag, and then this bag sits under my arm, and I control that with this elbow. So it's the elbow pipes because I'm always using my elbows. Whereas the mouth blown pipes, like the Scottish pipes or the Irish war pipes, you just use the one elbow and you breathe in and you play the instrument that way. So these are the Ulleann pipes. Now, there's a few different parts, and these are probably the most complicated bagpipe in the world. So many countries have bagpipes. We always think of the Highland pipes because that's what you see all the time, and it's very, it's a very easily recognizable sound. But the French have bagpipes, the Polish have bagpipes, the Turkish people have bagpipes. There's the Great Highland pipes, which are the Scottish pipes. There's also the Border pipes and the Lowland pipes, the small pipes. The English have the Northumbrian pipes. So there's tons of countries have bagpipes, but they kind of break down into two things, into two groups. There's the one group which are mouth blown, and then there's these which are called cold blown or bellow blown pipes. Now, a nice thing about when you have a bellow is that you don't have your moisture from your breath going through, which can rot out the reeds and makes the reeds wet. So the reeds stay dry, so the reeds can last, years and years and years. Whereas if you play the Highland pipes, you have to replace those reeds fairly often because of all of the moisture that builds up from your breath and that. So like the Scottish pipes and the part that plays the music is called the chanter. So it's a similar thing. Chanter is same for the Scottish pipes or the Irish war pipes that you see at the St. Patrick's Day parade. As this, we do have a chanter to have the melody. However, I actually put this on my leg here, and I actually have a bit of leather that helps me keep a nice fit and keeps the chanter closed, we call it. So with the Scottish pipes, they only play legato because it's what's called open, like but with this, because it's closed, I can stop the notes. So I can make it a much more staccato sound and kind of give it kind of a poppy sound to it. The other thing is when you have it down on your leg and you can close it, I can get up to almost 2 octaves. So the Scottish pipes will only, I think, do 9 notes. This will do almost a full 2 octaves. So the Scottish pipes can't get that higher octave like that. So this is actually a really good instrument, and also because it's not as loud as the Highland pipes, it can be played indoors, and it plays really well with other instruments in a indoor setting. So you can be playing at a pub. People can hear you, but you're not. People aren't covering their ears and trying to avoid the sound of it. So they're quiet enough to be played with other instruments, not too loud, and the range is really good. The other things that are different is I have drones, but the drones on these can either turn on or turn off. So I have a switch here. So sometimes I can play without the drones, or I can turn the drones on. So I have some control over that. And then the final thing, which really gets complicated, is these are called regulators. So these are basically other chanters, but they have keys on them that I play with my wrist so that I can actually play chords to accompany. So you can get either chords in the melody, or you can get a little rhythm going. You'll see how I'll use that when I put it all together. But so the instrument itself probably developed in the mid 1700s. So really by the time that we had our Revolutionary War here in the 1760s, that was the oldest example of the Ulleann pipes. They called them pastoral pipes at the time. They developed from some other ones, but really they go back to the mid 1700s and really took their current form in early 1800s. So that's really kind of the area that they were developed, and they were principally played on their own and not with groups. They were actually often used by clergy, the Protestant clergy, and they actually kind of referred this to as the Irish organ because they used it in church services as opposed to Catholic churches, which would use a regular pipe organ. But that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna play some tunes and show you some styles. Maybe talk some more about the instrument, but also when I'm in between my songs, if anybody has any questions, feel free to speak up. And
Brian,
yes,
there's a question in my chat about asking what the pipes are actually made of. Like, it looks like they're different materials.
Yes. Okay, that's a great question. So the wood part, this is ebony. These are mounts. These are decorative. So it's sort of yellowish here. That is boxwood. And then they have brass. This is all brass. So really it's ebony is the main wood. Boxwood is this yellow wood, and brass. And these pipes are actually completely handmade. You don't make factory made Ulleann pipes. So this set of mine was actually from a wonderful maker, Martin Prishaw, and he's in Northern Ireland. And because they make this all by hand, they have to turn the wood, let it dry, turn the wood, let it dry, because as wood ages and dries out, it can curve. So there's a slow process to make that. So he'll turn it on the lathe to a general shape, let it sit for maybe a year, turn it again, do some finer tweaking, and do that. So really the whole set itself probably took him about 4 or 5 years to make. Really with, sorry about that. I'm getting a call. Fine. That shouldn't have happened. So it really would have taken probably about 4 or 5 years for him to make it in all of its parts. So yeah, and even the metal part, it's all handmade. The brass parts are all hand rolled. And typically, some of the other things, sometimes people make them with silver, but ebony is a really good wood because it's very hard and dense. So they do make them out of different woods, but any kind of really dense wood is what'll make the difference. And it makes a difference with the sound, especially for this style. This is kind of called a concert pitch set. Older styles had a different lower pitch and might have used a different wood, but they had a quieter, sweeter sound to them, where this style was actually developed by two brothers that came over from Ireland, from Drogheda in Ireland, moved to Philadelphia, and they used this wood and this particular design because they were making pipes to be played in the vaudeville hall. So, which didn't have any microphones or acoustics at the time, like any electrical acoustic amplification. So they wanted to make a pipe that had a nice strong sound compared to the more traditional quieter ones. And that was also in a tune that could play with other instruments. So really they started using the ebony, and that's what this is as well.
And what does something like that cost?
They are a lot of money. So this is a full set. This one, when I bought it, was probably about altogether. Like I actually started different parts. Like I started with the chanter and the bag and the bellows. Then later added the drones and then added the regulator. So this set probably was about $9,000. But if you get them today, they're about 13 or 14,000. So it's not. It's one of the reasons too. There's probably very few of us pipers in New Jersey. Like there's only me and a couple of others that I know of that will actually play out in the crowd, you know, at events and the like, because they're not easy to come by, and you do have to wait. You know, there are some absolutely wonderful pipe makers in the United States, but I think their waiting list, if they still have a waiting list, is something like 12 years. So it can take a really long time to get them, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it is right now. So
Ryan, there's one more question. What is the bag made of? We don't know if did you mention that? The bag itself?
No, oh yeah. So the bag is just it's just cow leather. It's not a stomach. Some people think it's a
ladder.
Think it's like a stomach. It's not a stomach. So it's just treated leather, and it's just held together with studs. You can see them brass studs on here. So and stitch. So that is really important to have a really good bag, because since this instrument relies on air pressure, let me get rid of this. All right, since it relies on air pressure, any kind of leaks can really make you work too hard, like very hard. So when I first had these pipes, I had a bag that I didn't realize was leaky. It was just leaking air out of the surface, and I would be just sweating and, you know, just pumping away, and it was just very, very difficult to play. But I got a new bag, and that fixed the problem. It's, you know, there's all these other things about pipes that are difficult with these Ulleann pipes. There's a lot of maintenance. You know, everything is basically pieces of wood wrapped with twine and put into, like, you know, a piece of metal or a wood. And any time that the weather changes, like especially in the wintertime, it's actually very difficult to maintain them sometimes, because with the indoor heat, the wood will shrink, and then you can get leaks because it's just not as tightly wound, you know. So there is a lot of maintenance that goes at. There's actually a lot of Irish Ulleann pipers will not play in the United States in the wintertime just because their pipes it just doesn't work out for the pipes. They just don't like the cold, the dry heat in the winter that the United States has. In Ireland, they don't really use the same kind of heating system, and I don't think it gets as cold in all places. So they don't really have that issue over there. But here, I know that a lot of them have an issue playing here. So they just won't play in the wintertime. You know, like the Chieftains, they won't come around. They'll come around in the fall and in the spring, but they're not as into playing in the wintertime. So, all right.
Great.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a set of tunes. This is typically what we would do. We would put maybe 2 or 3 different tunes together. The first set of tunes, these are a set of jigs. Now, if anybody wants to dance, and you can dance in your chair, you can feel free to go ahead and do that while I play or clap along. So the jig is like the typical Irish tune, and it's actually the kind of tune that the Irish had, you know, historically. Like I'll talk about some of the other tunes that got incorporated into the traditional Irish music repertoire, but the jig itself is the Irish form of dance tune. So the Irish word for jig is port, P-O-R-T, but that actually just means tune. So they just called it a tune. They don't make a distinction between a jig or a reel or whatever, because at the time of the language, that's the only tune they had was the jig. So so these are going to be three jigs. the first one, and not that the names are really that important. You know, a lot of times when you're playing the music, you might know 100 tunes and forget half their names. It doesn't really matter. But the first one is called Black Eyed Biddy, and Biddy is a nickname for Elizabeth. The second tune is called The Yellow Wattle, and the third is called The Rolling Waves. And this is one of a couple of different versions of The Rolling Waves. So I hope you enjoy.
Wow.
All right, thanks. So yeah, so a jig is that 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. That's the basic rhythm of the jig. So that is a kind of traditional Irish tune. Those are some old tunes as well. You'll still, you know, it's a living tradition. So there are some tunes that are newer, some are older, some are very old. But you know, it's a tradition with Irish music of spanning over, you know, hundreds of years, at least since the 1600s. I think, you know, there are some manuscripts that do show tunes going back that far. And you know, that's kind of one of the things about the music, that when you really go back far into history, they didn't really write down the tunes. So it really took some people, like there was a James Goodman, who was Canon James Goodman, who was a pastor in Ireland, who actually wrote down a lot of tunes and was one of the first to collect tunes that were being played. And another thing about the music itself is, back in Ireland, even though we think of it as one country, and it's a small country, you know, compared to the United States, obviously, really people lived in their little areas, you know. So you had people living in Sligo, and people living in Clare, and people that were living in the Dublin area, and Northern Ireland and Ulster. And so even though that we think of the music as being very similar today or all together, people would really learn the tunes that were in their area. You know, they might not have traveled to the next town over, which might have been 5 or 10 miles away, but now there's these mountains in the way, and you know, they just never spread around a lot. So you'll even find with some of the tunes that are really known for some of certain areas. So like Sligo has a lot of particular tunes, which is in the southern part and a mountainous area in Ireland, that a particular tune, that type of tune that they play down there, like slides and the like, and polkas are very popular down there. Whereas if you go to some of the other parts of Ireland, like they would have never have learned that, you know, before the invention of the radio or the invention of, you know, the phonograph. So they might have had any idea what a polka was. So now we just have all this music together, which is great. And people are writing new tunes as well, which is also a wonderful thing too. So anyway, so that's about that.
Brian, I have a couple questions in the chat. Sure. So someone's commenting that it looks rather uncomfortable to play. Do you need a chiropractor after every concert?
Yeah. I mean, a good massage is always good. So I don't know, but
is it hard on your arms?
It's, you know, I mean, I do think actually this arm, I'm kind of like a crab, because this muscle here is bigger than this one, because while this one's moving, this one has a constant pressure. So it's actually very isotonic, you know, workout there. But it's not, it takes a while to learn how to be comfortable playing the instrument itself. I mean, it's been taking me a long while to do it. So it's actually not that bad now. But, you know, it took a lot of work to adjust where my pipes sit, because really if you adjust, like if the neck is a little bit too shorter, it'll be very difficult for me to play. Like there's all these little minute changes. Like if I turn to chanter a little bit, like that's going to affect everything else. So you really have to pay close attention when you're playing the pipes to what is comfortable, because there is just so much going on that really anything that makes you uncomfortable will tense you up. But then also, and when you tense up, if you're playing really fast, tension is your enemy. You know, you want to be very comfortable and loose to be able to play and move the fingers, because, you know, playing with some players, you're just going at a lightning speed. So you just really want to be comfortable for that. But no, I don't have a chiropractor. So, but thank you for your concern.
And then another question: how is the music notated with the chords and the drones? Is it several lines?
Usually not. I mean, when you find most of the music for Irish music, it's just the melody. Okay. The drones themselves are all set to the tone of D. So they're 3 Ds, low D, middle D, and a high D. So that doesn't change at all. Now you might, if I'm playing with, like in the session setup, I typically won't play the drones, because first of all, they don't really add anything when you're in a large group of people. Now, if I'm playing with my group Dina on stage, then I'll do it, because, you know, we have a limited amount of people in the band. So then I'll use my drones to add to the tune. But the other thing is I don't know, are people, is anybody out there a musician at all, or?
Well, we have music lovers. You can unmute yourself if you're a musician. I know we have some music lovers asking very specific musical questions.
I can kind of tell from the questioning, yeah.
The other question that we had was, are you limited to the number of key signatures as you have a limited number of chords to use? So that's definitely a musician, Karen.
Yeah, well, typically, so for traditional Irish music, they're really only in a few different keys. Like you'll get if anything that's D major or G major and the relative minors. So you're really kind of limited, and you don't need to know a lot. Now I do, as far as if I'm playing in, like I won't use the regulators in everything, because they are limited really to D and F and G chords, basically. Like I can make some minors here and there, like on that last tune I did, but you don't use them for everything. And the same thing with the drones. It's nice to be able to turn them off, because if I'm playing in, I don't know, there are keys that droning a D just does not work. Like if I'm playing in some E minor chord, that D would just fight it. So I just turn it off. Now, the chanter itself, this one that I have, I really only have, well, I have this back key here is to get up to a high C. So that's just normal, C natural. This key here is actually to get to an F natural. Now, normally it doesn't come on the chanter. You can get it without it, but I like having an F natural. Most of the time you don't need it in the music, but some people get all the keys. They can do a full chromatic scale, and then you can play whatever you want. I don't do that. The more keys you have, I have another set, like an older set of pipes that has all the keys, but the keys kind of get in the way. And most of the time, at least for traditional Irish music, you don't need it. You can kind of get away with half, opening up a hole every once in a while, in like, I might do that in a tune or two, but most of the time I'm just playing in A minor, D's, G, like those kinds of chords. C major is not really one that traditional Irish music is in. And sometimes, usually like at sessions, people just play in the basic keys, which is plenty, because there's 1,000 tunes in the basic, keys. Sometimes you'll get like a fiddler who will play in like F, and I just won't play. I'll just, they can just play in that, and people can tune in that. That's fine. I mean, usually if I'm playing with a fiddle player, they'll tune to me, because I'm just not set up to do that as much. So, but I do know of an Ulleann piper who plays jazz. So, he's got his whole setup where he can play whatever he wants, and he's amazing. That's not what I do,
Right.
So.
Someone else is asking, does the reed look like outside of what does it look like outside of the instrument? And is it like a clarinet reed or an oboe bassoon double reed?
It's a double reed. So actually this is on the chanter.
Okay.
I have a rubber band around it because it actually helps dampen it, but that's just me. But it's got this bridle here, which this is a metal piece that keeps it together. And then it's a double reed. So it's two reeds together. So, the other I have, so this is a double reed, and the regulators all have that same kind of reed. So that's these. The drones themselves don't. I don't want to open it up now, but the drones have it's a really primitive reed. It's basically a tube. Well, I'll just use this as an example. Like it's kind of like this, like a pen. So it's just a tube of cane. It's not this big, but then it's got a little slit cut in it, and this is what vibrates. So it's just a tubular reed, and that's the same kind that they have in the Highland pipes as well. So that's what's in the three drones. But that doesn't need to do anything but play one note, so it doesn't have to be as complicated to make as the chanter reeds.
All right, and before you play your next song, do you learn your pieces from sheet music or just from listening to others?
I do both, but I really find that just learning by listening is the best. I used to rely on sheet music more. And if I'm in a pinch, like say if I have a gig coming up and somebody says, "Oh, can we play this tune?" and I don't really know it, I'll listen to it and I'll look at the sheet music just to verify that I've got it right. Or if there's a part that's a little tricky because, there's a lot of notes, it's a very quick tune, whatever. But I really believe in learning by ear, at least for me. Different people learn differently. I also have like a slow downer program. Like I use those all the time, to slow down the tune so that, I can have it at a comfortable pace where I can learn it and just loop it over and over again to get it that way. I actually had another teacher, Benedict Kohler, who was up in New Hampshire, actually through one of the Irish Arts Weeks, which is a really wonderful week-long celebration of Irish music and culture every summer. Not last summer, and I'm not sure what the deal is with this summer yet, but up in the Catskills. But he had said, and he learns obviously you can learn by reading as well, but he made the point, which I actually agree with, is that if I learn something by sheet music, when I play it again, I automatically think of the sheet music. So it sort of like kind of gets in the way. So just musically, like if you learn it by ear, it actually makes it easier to pick up new things by ear because automatically my brain makes an association, my hands just do it. So even like, if I hear a new tune, I can actually pick it up much more quickly because I'm used to learning it that way. And I don't even think about the notes, like, am I playing a D or an A or B? I don't even think about that because that just kind of gets in the way of just playing it. So it becomes a much more intuitive thing by ear. So if anybody plays out there, at least with Irish music, I definitely recommend that. Or if you're interested in learning how to play, try to learn by ear as much as you can. Maybe it's different. Like I wouldn't necessarily learn classical music by ear, for instance, but Irish music definitely by ear. I think it might be hard at first, but you'll progress much more quickly, I think.
Great, thank you.
I got some great questions. I could tell there's definitely musicians and music lovers there, which I always love. So, so I'm gonna play. So the first set I played was it was a set of jigs. Now, what I'm gonna play next, these are called hornpipes. Now, hornpipes are actually, when you hear them, you actually think of like sailor songs, like the Popeye song. Da, 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 that's a hornpipe, and the hornpipes were actually from England. So jigs are from Ireland, hornpipes are from England, and they were songs that the sailors would sing. Now they actually believed, I've been told, that dancing a hornpipe prevented scurvy. So I've never gotten scurvy. So it could be true. I'm not positive. I haven't talked to my doctor or had this verified, but so they would dance this as an exercise, and it kept them healthy. I'm sure eating limes and lemons helped as well. But these are going to be two hornpipes. The first one is called the honeysuckle, and the second one is called Munster grass. And Munster, it's a area of Ireland. And I guess they have nice grass. Thanks for the applause. I see a little applause icon. Thank you, Jeff, the opera addict. I guess what I'm going to do, I'm going to play now a set of reels. So we had Ireland being the Jigs, we had England being the hornpipes, and now we have Scotland, which is where the reels had come from. So reels are the other tune that go 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You know, jigs are 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Reels are 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. So the two tunes here that I'm got, well, two, yeah. So the first one is called "Trim the Velvet," which I guess is a tailor thing, and so trim the velvet like the cloth. And then the second one is called Mayor Harrison's Fedora. Now, an interesting thing besides the name is, so one of the, you know, the connection between the United States and Ireland was just huge with music, and especially with the traditional Irish music. You know, when a lot of people came over to this country from Ireland, they settled in different areas and they established their music and played. But there was a big Irish population of immigrants in Chicago. And in the early 1900s, there was I think it was a fireman, a fire chief, Chief Francis O'Neill. And so his family was Irish. I think he was possibly born in the States, but he was really interested in the traditional Irish music that people were playing in Chicago. So he actually compiled a book called, it was just like traditional Irish music or something like that he published in 1903. And then he published a subsequent book, like 121 Irish tunes. But he was one of the first people, or one of the instrumental people, and actually going out, getting all these people in Chicago, especially a lot of the people that were, you know, in his fire company that played, that were from Ireland, and writing down what they played. And now it's kind of like the Bible of Irish music for those that, you know, want to refer to tunes, want to learn tunes. So it's really a great book even to this day, and it really helped save a lot of those tunes that probably would otherwise have been lost over time. So the second tune, called Mayor Harrison's Fedora, you know, like a hat. So Mayor Harrison was the mayor of Chicago. So that was, I guess, technically Francis O'Neill's boss. So I'm not sure if the tune was written in Chicago or if they just called it that and it was, you know, that just became the name. It doesn't totally matter, but I just like the tune a lot. So these are two reels. Let me just adjust something. I guess, yeah.
My question, what's the difference between the pipe and the jig? Or the reel and the jig?
So it's really the time. Now the dance is going to be different, but and I'm not going to dance for you. I apologize. I didn't. That's not my skill set. But so the jig is 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Well, that's real. I should play it. Let me say. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2. So that's a jig,
Right.
and then the reel is 1 2 1 2. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. I'm not used to talking while doing it, but yeah, it's a different dance step. So the jig is a little bit more flowy, more lilty. Actually, if you think about lilting, that's kind of like it. Where the jig 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. So it's a different dance step.
Yep. Okay.
So
That was helpful.
So I guess I'll finish. Now this is actually an example of a tune that's actually not traditionally an Irish tune, but you might probably well know it. I'm going to play more of an air. So an air is a song. A lot of the airs are in Irish language, some in English. But I thought this one you would all probably know. And so I'm going to play Danny Boy on the pipes for you. So an air is a slower thing, and it really features the pipes because you can use the regulators to make chords. So this one actually, the song itself, I was just looking up here about it. It was actually written as a ballad by a gentleman named Frederick Weatherby, who was an English songwriter, and he wrote it back in 1913. So it was actually written to a melody, a tune called London Derriere. And he composed the words to another song, but then heard London Derriere and then fit the words to that. And it became a huge hit over there and an even huger hit over here in the United States. So, it's not a real, like the words themselves are not old. London Derriere is probably an older, most assuredly an older tune. So, but this is what an air is. So an air is usually a solo piece where a piper or somebody else would just take it and put their own little spin interpretation on it, but really just without, slow down the melody and just kind of let the tune speak for itself. So this will be Danny Boy. So I hope you enjoy it. And I'm gonna kind of add the drones and stuff. right, thanks so much. I got a couple more minutes if anybody else has any questions, but I really appreciate having you let me come in to share some time in your home with you today. And Northern Folklife Center of Northern New Jersey, to Michelle and to Susan and Lael and everybody there, thanks so much for having me. I hope everybody has a wonderful St. Patrick's Month, but if anybody has any more questions, I'd be happy to take them. Or is everybody just speechless?
Well, folks, why don't you turn your cameras on so you can thank Brian in person. There's one more question, Brian, and that is it one harder to play than the other? I guess they mean like an air versus a, jig or a...
They all have their own kind of challenges, and part of it really depends on the tune itself. The thing that's I find at least kind of more advanced about playing the airs is it's really important, because airs are songs. I find it really, really important to listen to a singer. So you need to find what's called sean-nós, which is sean meaning old, nos is the Irish for style, so old style singer. You need to find a sean-nós singer if it's an Irish who sings the song, because if you listen to somebody else, like everybody knows Danny Boy, but you know it because you know the words, you've heard the melody, you've heard somebody singing it. But a lot of times when people play airs, if you don't know the tune, like the song, it's kind of hard because the person who's playing it puts their own interpretation on it. It's kind of hard to grasp onto it. So if you actually learn an air from somebody else's air playing of that air on an instrument, it's really, sometimes it's just baffling and it's just really hard to do. So you really need to find, I think, that sung version of it, and then your brain can click and say, oh, now I get it. And then you can add whatever you want musically. Like, that's the beautiful thing about airs. And that's really great about the pipes as well. The kind of things that are tougher about it is you need to figure out where you can put cool little chords and little tasty bits, throughout that to help accentuate it and add some tension to the air. The other tunes can be easy or hard. Sometimes it really depends on how fast other people play them. So, there are definitely each instrument, fiddle players might like certain tunes, but I might play certain tunes on the pipes that are hard for them. I've had tunes that, my fiddle player friend will play that are really just kind of a little bit more difficult on the pipes, just because it's a different physical instrument and the way you play it. So, that'll change from tune to tune. But as far as the reels and airs, reels and jigs and all that, like they're not necessarily complicated,
Somebody else is asking, somebody else just said, super program, thank you so much. Jeff, are there any of your performances available online, like on YouTube or maybe with your band? Is there any place we could check you out?
If you go to look up Dina, Daoine, on Facebook, we have some recordings, not a whole lot, and I think we have another website. Well, actually, through Facebook would probably be the best thing.
Say it again, Brian. Daione. Okay.
And that means Irish, or that means people in Irish. So, because I actually have the group, like I started the group, and I'll get different people for different shows, depending on who can make it or what we want for a particular show. So we just enjoy playing music with each other. So that's what I would recommend. I don't have a heck of a lot of stuff out there. You can probably look up my name on, actually, if you look up my name on YouTube, I do have a couple of things on there. I've been awarded through the New Jersey Council on the Arts. I've had a number of years. I've been awarded a folk art apprenticeship grant. And so I have the videos up for that, and I'm applying again for that again this year, which is just, a wonderful thing that the State Council on the Arts supports. Like they support the Folklife Centers, they support the individual folk artists as well to help us, train with other masters in the craft. So you can check out YouTube there also.
Great, that's terrific. Thank you so much. Well,
Thank
Susan,
you. It was great.
Another
Thank
great.
you so much, Brian. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and looks like everybody else did too. And thank you, everybody, for joining us.